The stage was a high-profile televised town hall on education reform held in Boston's packed Symphony Hall. The ornate venue was overflowing with press, students, and political insiders, all drawn by the promise of a verbal showdown between Senator Elizabeth Warren and rising conservative firebrand Karoline Leavitt. Moderators had barely welcomed the crowd when the tension between the two women became palpable. Warren leaned forward in her seat, microphone in hand, eyes locked on Leavitt, who was poised, tight-lipped, and clad in a no-nonsense Navy suit. "Let's be real," Warren began with a confident, almost theatrical flair. "Republicans like Karoline want to gut public education and shove prayer pamphlets where science textbooks used to be. You talk about freedom, while defunding the very system that freed me, a poor girl from Oklahoma, to become a Harvard law professor and a U.S. senator." Laughter and applause followed from the left side of the audience, while Leavitt maintained a deliberate stillness, her knuckles white around her microphone. The moderator tried to pivot, but Leavitt interrupted with a calm, chilling clarity. "You're mocking millions of families who don't want their kids trapped in failing schools? Just because bureaucrats in D.C. find it ideologically comforting. That's not education, it's entrapment." The air thickened. Warren smirked. "Entrapment? You call qualified teachers and free public schools entrapment? You want a privatized circus where kids learn what? Alternate histories and prosperity? Gospel economics?" Her tone was amused but razor-sharp. The audience murmured, some clapping, some booing. Leavitt blinked slowly, her voice now clipped and venomous. "You can sneer all you want, Senator. You can roll your eyes at school choice, pretend charter schools are evil, but you're not the one walking through metal detectors at age 12, or watching your science teacher cry because he has to buy lab supplies with his own money. You sat in your ivory tower and got tenure while kids in New Hampshire, my home, shared textbooks from 1996. She stood suddenly, no longer waiting for the moderator's permission. "Don't you dare tell me I don't care about education. I live the failure of the system you romanticize." Warren leaned back, her smile faltering as the crowd hushed, the only sound the low thrum of press cameras clicking like distant thunder. A few students in the balcony stood in hesitant applause before sitting back down, unsure which side they were now clapping for. Senator Warren stiffened in her chair, her eyes narrowing. "You know what's dangerous, Karoline? Pretending that private vouchers are some magic fix for systemic underfunding. You're selling snake oil. Education isn't a free market game. It's a public duty." Her voice was rising now, words hitting like a prosecutor's closing argument. "I taught children who had been failed by broken homes and broken banks. You think putting a Bible in their backpack and kicking them to a private school will save them? You're out of your depth." The accusation hung there, audibly sharp. Leavitt tilted her head slightly, lips parting into a thin, lethal smile. "Out of my depth?" she repeated, softly, dangerously. "I may not have written 10 books on bankruptcy or taught torts to your Ivy League protégés, Senator, but I've seen a different kind of classroom, one where kids came to school hungry and afraid. And while you were busy calling Republican, women fringe, I was helping my neighbors raise enough money for school lunches because our local district ran out of funds in March." She turned to the audience. "You call that equity?" A murmur rippled through the hall as Warren opened her mouth, then closed it again, her prepared rebuttal suddenly flat in the face of the raw authenticity bleeding from Leavitt's words. Silence grew pregnant with tension before Warren stood as well, the gesture unmistakably combative. "You're angry. I get it. But anger doesn't fix schools, Karoline. Policy does. Real investment, real reform." She gestured to the crowd now, seeking allies among the educators and union leaders in attendance. "We are in a fight for the soul of American education. And if we let people like Karoline turn this into a culture war, we lose the next generation." Applause rose once again, but not as unanimous as before. Leavitt didn't flinch. She stepped closer, reducing the distance between them to inches. Her voice dropped to a whisper, amplified by her microphone to every corner of the room. It is a culture war, Senator, and you've already lost, because you've forgotten the very people you claim to fight for. You mock their values, their faith, their pain. You mock me. But I'll tell you something no Harvard seminar ever taught you. Shame doesn't work on the poor. We've lived through worse. She turned abruptly to walk off the stage, leaving her microphone still live behind her. Let the cameras roll. Let them spin this. Just don't forget the look on your face when someone finally called your bluff. The moderator stammered something about returning to the panel questions, but the crowd had already shifted in energy. Some stunned, some electrified, some angrily booing. Warren remained frozen in place, her political composure unraveling ever so slightly, lips tightening as if chewing back something unscripted. She sat down slowly, blinking into the blinding stage lights. Backstage, Karoline ripped off her earpiece and ignored the aides hurrying toward her. Her phone buzzed endlessly, texts, calls, probably fundraising alerts already hitting inboxes. But she didn't check. Instead, she stopped near a service elevator and leaned against the cold concrete wall, exhaling for the first time in what felt like hours. A young journalist caught up to her, microphone raised. Ms. Leavitt, what do you say to critics who claim your rhetoric tonight was designed to provoke more division? She looked at him with something between pity and fire. Division exists whether we name it or not. I'm just not afraid to call it by its real name. With that, she turned and entered the elevator alone. The doors closed slowly, and for a moment, everything was still, until Elizabeth Warren, now seated in the emptying hall, pulled out her phone and dialed. "Get me Kamala," she said quietly. "We've got a problem." The call between Elizabeth Warren and Vice President Kamala Harris took place behind tinted glass, somewhere in the back of a bulletproof SUV winding through the streets of Boston. "She's not just another fire starter," Warren said, voice low, taut with both frustration and reluctant awe. "Karoline knows how to weaponize authenticity. She's young, furious, and she doesn't blink when she's covered in blood." On the other end, Harris exhaled slowly. "You're saying she's dangerous," Warren scoffed. "I'm saying she's what Trump only pretended to be, a true believer populist with a camera-ready smile and no shame about wounding people." The conversation shifted to damage control, strategy, and message recalibration. But the momentum had already shifted outside the car. Clips of Leavitt's confrontation with Warren were spreading like wildfire across social media. Conservative influencers called it a generational torch passing. Even some liberal commentators begrudgingly admitted she exposed a nerve. Within hours, mainstream outlets were airing the segment on loop. In Washington, cable panels argued over whether Leavitt was a reckless demagogue or a misunderstood insurgent. But the storm was only beginning. 2 days later, Leavitt accepted an invitation to appear on CNN's State of the Union. The host, Dana Bash, wasted no time. "Ms. Leavitt, Senator Warren's office accuses you of undermining decades of bipartisan educational progress. She says your remarks are not only misleading but dangerous." Leavitt leaned forward, posture unyielding, her expression a tight blend of amusement and disdain. "Dangerous is what you call someone who doesn't flinch when your institutions fail," she said. "Senator Warren thinks she's defending the soul of American education. But what she's really defending is the narrative that everything is fixable if you just wait long enough. Poor kids don't have time to wait." Bash tried to push back, mentioning data, policy proposals, teacher unions, but Leavitt stayed locked in. "They want the poor to stay quiet while the rich perfect. Their own kids' futures, that's not reform. It's a prison sentence with a diploma." The comment went viral before the segment ended. Protesters gathered outside her next event, some cheering, others waving signs, reading fun schools, not sound bites. The more they shouted, the more press followed. Leavitt didn't apologize. She doubled down, tweeting, "The elites don't fear ignorance. They fear a poor kid learning how rigged the game is."